How's it going, everybody? In this video I'll be going over how to perform the repair for the balancing door lock syndrome that Ford Flexes and possibly other Ford vehicles have a problem with. This specific TSB is 09-1-3 for power door lock, bounce, or cycles. So this is a fairly easy task. It's a slight adjustment to a grommet on the lock actuator. But in order to get to the actuator, there's a few fasteners that we need to remove for this panel. There are screws all around the perimeter of the door, one behind this reflector, bolt behind this panel here. There's a panel here that I'll get a close-up of once we start disassembling the door. And there's a plastic fastener up in the corner where the mirror is. So let's get started. One of the bolts is located right here behind the door panel. This is a decorative cover that's just simply snapped in. Use a pick or some other hooked prying tool to carefully pry it out. As you can see, there's just 3 tabs that hold it in. Now, the first couple years this particular models were made, these had a frequent issue where they would fall out. We've had ours replaced, and so far they're holding. Again, this is a 10mm bolt. Today I'm using a DeWalt gyroscopic technology screwdriver. First bolt. Behind this panel is another bolt, and same thing, you'll need to use a pick or some other flat tool to help massage it out. Not too bad. By the way, these are 10mm bolts. And those are the 2 bolts that you need to worry about, both 10mm once again. This reflector has a screw behind it, and again, use your pick, whatever prying tool you have, and just ease it out. There's 2 snaps holding this in. Here you have the screw. Alright, so once you have the 2 bolts out, we can begin removing the screws. Alright, so there's one. Take note, there's a rubber bumper on this particular one. There's a couple on the bottom. Couple on the front edge. And as I mentioned before, there is a clip up here which should pop right out as you pop out the door. So what you need to do is, this is hooked over the top edge of the door frame. So all you got to do is lift it out, then carefully pop that right out. There's your clip right here. Alright, so what I've done here, instead of taking all the connectors apart and the door linkage, I've opted just to hang it with this bungee cord here, which will save you a little bit of time. The thing we're needed to be worried about is this assembly here. According to the TSB, the cause of the lock bouncing is the positioning of this grommet in relation to the lock rod. I think the idea behind adjusting this grommet is to properly position the rod to line up with the hole that the lock goes through. You can see, and I'm just going to make a gross adjustment here just so that you can see how changing that position changes the distance that the center line of this rod is in relation to where the lock hole would be. So since mine looked like it was in the right position, I'm gonna adjust it out just slightly from where it was before and try to go with that and just see how things work out. The problem on warmer days usually doesn't show up. It's usually when it's cold, and this grommet's probably a lot more rigid than when it's warm. So I will try that adjustment and see what happens. If not, the other possibility is to put a light lubricant that's safe for plastic onto this lock mechanism just to help things out a little bit. Alright, before I put this back together, something I noticed while I was trying to put the panel back on is this sound deadening pad is actually right in the path of where the lock rod needs to travel. So what am I going to do? So there's a alignment pin for some of the plastic trim protruding through. I'm just going to poke this over the top of that, and I suppose it's a possibility that a combination of that plus the positioning of the grommet could have been causing my issues, but I guess only time will tell. So let's put this back together and hope we got the problem fixed. Alright, so when we replace the panel, a couple things to watch out for. You might need to use a tool to help guide your lock through the grommet in the top of the door. Put this on, if you remember, hooks right over the top. Make sure you get your clip clipped into the hole. Once everything's seated, ensure your holes are all lined up. If you want at this point, you can test the lock. Seems to be working pretty well. Remember, when you're putting your screws back in, the one with the rubber grommet, right in here. two 10mm bolts. And just replace the decorative panels. Looks good. And that's it. Thanks for watching.